Hi everyone, welcome back to Urban Pulse GY, your planning podcast where we highlight developmental initiatives in Guyana, navigate planning issues, and explore potential solutions. I am Cassandra Lindbergh Finance, your host and planning coach. Good evening. To date, we've completed 7 of our 17 episodes for Season 1. Season 1 is focused on laying the theoretical and historical foundations that would guide our planning discourse. And because you've joined us, and you've stayed with us, I want to take this opportunity to express my heartfelt gratitude for your support and encouragement. Your enthusiasm for the content we've shared has truly been inspiring, and it motivates us to continue the work we've begun to provide insightful information that not only highlights current developments, but also sheds light on our rich history from a planning perspective. So, thank you again. Notably, a few of our school-aged viewers have shared how the episodes would have widened their knowledge base about urban and rural planning and about our history here in Guyana. So, we've invited some of them to be on our platform next week to take part in a quiz. And friends, this is exciting news for the team here. We invited them and they accepted. And since the quiz will feature questions from previous episodes, today I will be doing a recap for their benefit. We started this conversation by introducing the discipline of urban and regional development, and we noted that it is sometimes referred to as town planning or community planning, city planning, or regional planning. But by definition, urban planning is a comprehensive and interdisciplinary process that focuses on the development and design of land use and the built environment. Thus, it looks at development that is concerned with transportation, infrastructure, public spaces, people, community services, all of these as they are functions that indicate how efficient and sustainable these communities are. The discipline, though different from others, it pulls resources from several professions like engineering, architecture, politics, human and social geography, social sciences, history, even environmental sciences. But at the heart of the discipline of urban and regional planning is people. It's entrusted in where they live, where they work, and where they play. So the question is, where do people live? Where do they play? The answer is in human settlements. By definition, human settlements, it's a community of people living together, living and dwelling together in a specific geographical area that was previously uninhabited. Additionally, it looks at the social, material, organizational, spiritual, cultural, all of these elements that would sustain the settlement. Additionally, we looked at the evolution of human settlement and how it would have necessitated the discipline of urban planning. It started way back when early humans had no need for permanent settlements, as they were hunter-gatherers and they moved constantly in search of their food. But with the introduction of agriculture, humans learned how to cultivate the land for food. And this resulted in the development of farming communities. People began claiming land and expanding their cultivation. The benefit agriculture brought in to the early humans was that it provided people with the opportunity to access stable food supplies and also a reason to settle permanently in an area. And this actually became the basis for human settlement. Many rural communities developed and became self-sufficient as a direct result of agriculture. However, By the 18th, 19th century thereabout, things began to change. And this happened with the advent of mechanical technology. Steam engines and rails reduced the dependency of rural factories on water, as transportation now allowed them to move their produce and raw materials to urban areas. This attracted labor and resulted in mass rural to urban migration. Many workers found themselves cramped in poorly constructed houses, which lacked basic amenities such as proper sanitation. There was little ventilation, no electricity, no running water, and as a result, there was widespread of diseases. These realities created a pressing need for a systematic process that could address the complexities of modern human settlements and do so effectively. The solution was urban planning. And as such, rural planners began advocating for organized land use within cities and towns. Thereby, they focused on implementing housing regulation, introducing public health reforms, improving transportation infrastructure. Additionally, increased focus was placed on addressing poverty, reducing congestion and pollution, promoting functionality and accessibility within cities, while improving standards of living through access to resources and social and economic developmental opportunities. We then went on to talk about how human settlements can be classified, and we noted that it is based on four main indicators: forms, size, types, and functions. Settlement types can either be rural, these are like hamlets, isolated dwellings, and villages. As it pertains to urban settlements, they include like towns and cities and megacities. We also identify the other type of settlement as suburban settlements. And in these areas, residential communities they're really residential communities, but they're located just outside the towns or the cities. We then talked about the forms of settlements, and we noted that they are based on the spatial organization or the arrangement of buildings. And we talked about linear, those that would develop along the path of rivers or the path of roads, right? And often they're in like a straight line. We talked about nucleated settlements, which would occur in like a cluster, right? We have several buildings in like a cluster. We also talk about dispersed settlements, like, they're scattered, like one building here and one a little way off. And we talked about these often being in like rural areas and like farming communities, so there's land to do your farming and so on. We also discussed the functions of settlements, and we noted that they are based on the roles of the communities and the various activities that the people would engage in. So there is the primary function, and we all know what the primary function of a human settlement is. That is to provide residential services, right? It's where people live. Your house, my house, we have somewhere we can call home. And that's one of the main purposes of settlements, providing residence for its inhabitants. Then there is the commercial function, where businesses are located or businesses are done. There is also the industrial function, where goods are manufactured and processed. There is administrative, recreational, agricultural functions, right? Additionally, other than talking about the introducing the baseline for planning this course, we also went into our Planning Digest segment where we looked at Guyana, particularly where her idea about planning started, what are the foundations that were laid. And we noted, one, that geographically, Guyana is located in the northeastern part of South America, and it covers approximately 83,000 square miles. We noted that 27.3% of the country's population lives in urban areas, while the majority, 72%, resides in rural regions. We noted that as of 2025, Guyana is at an exciting juncture when it comes to urban and regional development. And this is mainly due to the booming oil economy that we now have. We are seeing significant infrastructural development and investment, commitment to sustainability. We're seeing climate resilient initiatives, and additionally, we also see the growing interest other nations are having in our development here in Guyana and want to be a part of it. But historically, the foundation of Guyana's planning landscape was set even before the Spanish and the Portuguese, the French, the Dutch, and even the British came and established their colonies here. The Amerindian people had already been here, occupying these lands for centuries, and they had and continues to contribute significantly to Guyana's development. We noted that while the Amerindians were busy settling in their ways here in South America, that's way back then, two of the most powerful maritime nations in Europe began expanding their territories through exploration and colonization. By 1419, Portugal had begun exploring along the African coast and into Asia. And later on, in 1492, the Spanish began their exploration and conquest through the voyages of Christopher Columbus. And by 1494, they had discovered countries like Bahamas, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, Cuba, and Jamaica, but not Guyana. In fact, history has it that Columbus just sighted the South American mainland. He never landed there. However, with Columbus's finds, tension rose between Spain and Portugal over who should be allowed to explore this newly discovered world, as they called it. So, to prevent Portugal and any other world power from exploring the region, in 1493, Pope Alexander VI issued a series of papal bulls, a formal authoritative decree that the lands discovered by envoys of the Spanish kingdom that were not already claimed by Christians would now belong to Spain. Portugal was granted rights to lands discovered east of an imaginary line of longitude running through the eastern part of present-day Brazil, while everything west would belong to Spain according to the Pope's papal decree. Almost 100 years after Columbus would have sighted the South American mainland, there was a gold mining frenzy that was ignited in Guyana by Sir Walter Raleigh in 1595. This became the basis of the Dutch being the first European settlements or settlers to come and settle here in Guyana. And they did so between 1613 and 1616. They initially settled in Essequibo and established Fort Kite Overall, which means the sea overall, where they traded with indigenous people, and for a good while business was lucrative. As such, the Dutch West Indian Company was set up by the Netherlands to govern their affairs and protect their interests in this part of the world. But by 1716, the settlement had become overcrowded because, as I noted, there was a gold finding frenzy. So, whoever could have come came to Guyana. So after a period of time, the settlement became overcrowded, right? And given that there was a global shift from gold to agriculture, settlers began relocating to the more fertile banks of the Essequibo to pursue agricultural development. By 1748, Fort Kite Overall was completely abandoned. Flag Island was the new administrative center, and they built a new fort there by using bricks baked on the spot, using mortar that was imported from Barbados, and they used the labor of enslaved Africans to build the fort. Work commenced in 1740 and concluded in 1743. Upon completion, it was named Zealandia. And in 1749, the fort was christened the capital of the colony of Essequibo, Guyana's first capital. To sum up our recap session, I do hope that the session would have been a benefit to everyone, including our young friends who will be participating in the quiz next week. So thank you again for being an integral part in this journey. And remember to like, share, and subscribe to our podcast on Facebook and YouTube. And remember that together we build sustainable communities and a better Guyana. See you next week when we'll be having our quiz. Bye, friends.